Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Newsgram. Today, we're going to go back in time. It was just over 40 years ago when Winifred Millicent Hardy sat down to write the story of Isabel and Bill Elgin and their children. They were emigrating from England for a new life on a farm in the remote wheat belt of Western Australia. In Bill and Isabel's world, it's 1911. A tough time for Australian farmers who were pushed to their limits by the dry, dusty, vermin-infested landscape. Bill and Isabel are stepping off the Kalgoorlie Express, Perth Station, with their family of 6 and dreams of a new life in an unforeseen future.
None of them knew anything about farming, basically, and they came out from England and got this farm in the middle of nowhere, and they were the pioneers of that time. They struggled through droughts and floods and the First World War.
That's Helen Payne, who along with her sister Janet Goldman recently published the manuscript of this part true, part fictional story. It's titled A Curlew Cried, and it was a story they found among the items in their mother's estate.
It was wonderful. From the minute I sort of looked at it and started to read it, I was absolutely fascinated. And of course, all the pages had sort of been mixed up, so I had to go through all the pages and put them back together again, and I couldn't put it down.
Doesn't that put a smile on your face? It's one of my favorite types of finds, stumbling across something long forgotten. Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from the movie Field of Dreams. The memories will be so thick they'll have to brush them away from their faces. It's wonderfully dizzying.
When she had time, she'd open it up and she'd write whatever she was writing. And of course, as a 14-year-old or whatever, I wasn't in the slightest bit interested what she was doing. And when she finished it, she asked my sister to type it. My sister was a typist. And I can remember Janet sitting there with this old-fashioned typewriter typing this manuscript. And I don't know what happened. It got finished and then nothing happened with it, and they shoved it in a bag. And when Mum got ill, she came to live with us, and of course everything came with her, and I just must have put it in the filing cabinet and forgot about it. It was only through sheer luck that I found it, and we got it published.
So the lives of the Elgin family have been dusted off and sent out into the world for us to enjoy. It was a tough life for these pioneers, farming a rugged terrain in a turbulent time. Still, they persevered as the determined family they were, willing to do whatever it took, no matter what the personal sacrifices may have been.
They came to Perth, which is our capital, and from there got on a train and got this farm. And they had it for a long, long time and made the best out of a bad situation, but at least they could own that property. And the girls in the family supported the men and worked as hard as the men.
The will to go the distance was so powerful back then. The faith, the commitment, and the sense of family unity was all so powerful. If you like this kind of story, I think you'll enjoy A Curlew Cried by Winifred Millicent Hardy. And unless you're an ornithologist, you've probably been curious about what in the world a curlew is.
A curlew is a bird that used to be in the wheat belt.
Yes, and there are a couple of different types of curlew. The bushstone curlews are now listed as threatened, but you can still find them if you're a determined birder. Check out the Koala Conservation Reserve. I'm told they have some. The eastern curlew, which looks a lot like a skinny version of the kiwi, it's listed as critically endangered in Australia. And one more thing. In Australian folklore, the curlew is said to represent a bad omen or death because its call sounds like a screaming woman or a baby. Okay, I'll stop talking about the birds, but I wanted to share that because I think it adds a great deal of romance to this tale. A family struggling to make a new life in an unforgiving world and finding a way to not only do that, but to have some laughs along the way. It's also the story of Winifred Millicent Hardy, her lost manuscript, and her hidden past, which was now resurrected in a magnificent way. Listen to Helen recount how she felt when she first read the manuscript and found out something about her mom that she didn't know before.
Everything sort of came together then for me, that this is what Mum was trying to tell us, but she couldn't, because she would have been sworn to secrecy, that she was illegitimate, and she couldn't even tell her own daughters. And I think that's the saddest part. I mean, there's obviously a lot of fiction in it as well, but most of the characters, I suppose, when Mum wrote it, they were still alive, so she couldn't put them down. But, all the boys that went to war, it was true. And I think people will love it, actually. I really hope they do, because everyone I know who has read it has loved it and said, where's the sequel? We need a sequel.
Leave them wanting more. That's perfect. Somewhere Winifred Millicent Hardy has to be smiling.
She just loved Australia very, very much. And she worked hard all her life. And unfortunately, she never got to see her work published. And I wish she had, because that makes me sad. But I'm happy that it is now published and people can have a good read, have a good laugh. Let me know. I'd love to know what people think of it.
A Curlew Cried is now available wherever you like to buy books. We have links to Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com in the show's description. And that will do it for this edition of Newsgram from WebTalkRadio.com.